In this video, I'm going to show you how to complete Queen Nefertiti's headpiece by sewing all the various pieces together at the end. So this is what we're going to be making. This one is in teal. I'm going to be creating mine in blue. And what you will have crocheted is a yellow band separately, a main hat piece in one go, the cobra, which is at the top, this small figure of 8, a straight stick, which is that piece that runs round there, and then the bejeweled band that goes all the way around. But let's put it together so you can see how the pieces come together. So I'm going to we will be stuffing it when we sew it into position, but to do this first piece, I'm going to remove my stuffing and then we'll put it in at the end. And what you need to do is get your yellow band that you've created as a separate piece. And what we're trying to do is we're going to fit this piece into here. So what we want to do is put our hook in. You've got your trebles on your hat in that bit there, but we're going to put it into the first double crochet that's the step down in the shorter bit. You'll see you've got the shorter step bit like that. Then using your main colour, put it in through that piece and in through your yellow piece. Like that. Join in your yarn and we're going to double crochet between the blue and the yellow piece right the way around those stitches. So we're going to go in on this one, in through your stitch, which is your starting chain on your yellow, and double crochet. Then when you get right the way round to the step up blue treble, so the bits that are taller than the rest of the hat, instead of crocheting into this side of the yellow, we're actually going to break the yarn and then rejoin and crochet into the blue side of the yellow. So let me show you what I mean. So finish going right the way across. Like that. So when you get to the step up piece, break the yarn. So that's us having joined that yellow piece on the front like that to create a lip. Now what we're going to do is actually rejoin on the step up. So that's with the trebles, and I'm going to then crochet this piece onto the other side of the yellow band. So through the blue and through the yellow. So I'm going to go all the way around the edge. And what the yellow band's going to do is not only does it give you that bit at the front, obviously this is a very famous artifact that we are recreating here, possibly more so than anything else that I've crocheted. I had to really have a think about how to try and capture this one correctly. But what the yellow band will do is it'll actually also help hold it on the head. So you're going to have something quite firm there because you've got those rounds of double crochets going all the way around to hold the hat in place when it's on, because it is obviously quite a considerably heavy hat that's sitting on top of her head. So you can right the way around. And all I'm doing is double crocheting those blue line of trebles into the other side of the yellow band like that. And break your yarn. And so what you've created is you've attached on the yellow piece underneath like that, and then we double crocheted around to make that really neat, so that yellow piece just sits underneath the blue piece at the back. Now you can sew in your ends, but because we're going to actually be sewing it directly onto her head now, you can actually sew in your ends as you go. So what you can do like that is come down, we'll get rid of that end, in, put a bit of stuffing in, like that. So you really want to see the most of that shape that you've crocheted, so make sure you've got stuffing in enough to see it, but we are then going to slot it onto the head. And that then forms the front. So the yellow piece, the rim at the front, forms the front of the hat. bring that on, and you want to see those eyebrows. Now, I would recommend, as I've got here, sew the face on first. Use your ears as the guide. So do you see my ear is here? My eye is in line with the top of my ear. 3 rounds down the top of my ear, and then embroider that eyeliner on the top afterwards. Sew the face on first because that'll make it a bit easier for you when positioning the hat. Then bring the hat down, making sure that the yellow piece is in the center. So it should run from one ear to the other ear. Do you see the yellow piece runs there from that ear to that ear like that? What I'm going to do is actually tack that into position first before I then use those blue threads to sew right the way around the back. So position it in from ear to ear. Put a couple of stitches in like that. And then you want to bring the back right down the head. So your yellow piece will touch the top of the ear, but pull this bit that we've just done, the bit where we've got the yellow band underneath, get this right down the head at the back like that. And sew that into position. Now you can obviously always pin it first before you finally put it in place if you want to, so that you're certain that you're in the right place. I've just done a few tacking stitches there where I'll then turn it around, check that I'm definitely happy with that positioning. So yellow to yellow on the ears, and then pull it down on the back so you get that lovely shape. So with the hat very firmly in place, it's now time to put detail onto the center of it. So following the pattern, what you will have crocheted is a piece like this, a straight line piece, and we're going to put that on first. And using her face as the guide, so using her nose as the center of her face as a guide, line that up like that, and you want to sew that into the middle of the yellow. Now, if you want to, you can be as accurate as to count how many stitches you've got coming off this side to the other, but the most important thing is that you're going to be lining that up with the front of her face. So line that up like that and sew that into the yellow. Initially, and I'm just going to sew it at the bottom, and then I'm actually going to tack it on at the top, and I might come back and add a few more stitches into that later on, but initially that will mean that we can then wind the other band underneath. So I've come to the top, I've tacked it in at the bottom, and then I'm just going to tack it in at the top so that that's in place. There we go. Next, I'm going to take the band that goes right the way around the outside. So this is the piece that you've crocheted using your 2 colours and your beads. And what we're going to do is we're going to wrap this through underneath. So we're going to go underneath the piece that we just tacked on like that, so that that comes through. And then we're going to wrap it right the way around, and then it crosses over and it fits on the back crossed over. So what you need to do, cross it over like that, and then we're going to sew that in place so it goes right the way around the head like that. And you want it to be about halfway up that piece that we put on first, but start at the back because that's where your ends are. I'm going to use my yellow yarn, and I'm starting from over here where we finished off the blue piece. And that piece will go on the opposite side, so symmetrically onto the other side like that. And what we want to do is make sure we hide the turquoise piece that the beads are on underneath. Now, we did it in one go just to make it easy, that you didn't have to do all of those colour changing and adding beads on, but we don't really want to see that turquoise piece of crochet that we did underneath. Now I'm just going to tack this initially. Again, I'll probably come round and do plenty more stitches afterwards, but initially I just want to hold this in place so that I can put the other pieces in for you and you can see. So that's one in. Then let's do the other side, and I'll just need to join a length in to do this. So to do this other side, bring it down and forwards. I'll sew all those turquoise ones in at the end. Down and forwards, check that you're symmetrical to that side. And then tack that into place. Bring that right round in the same way. So once you're happy with the positioning, what I'm going to do is rejoin a longer piece of yellow, and I will actually then sew either side of it so it's very much fixed in position. So I'll go and I'll do exactly what I've done, but either side of that row so it's absolutely fixed. Because what you don't want to see is these bits of turquoise like that. All you want is that gem on the right side. And then you'll be able to sew those turquoise bits behind so that you won't see them at all. And it just saved us doing lots of colour changes with those stones attached. So with that in place, the last thing to add is the figure of 8 and then the cobra on the top, just to finish that off. So what you've got here is you've got the sewn little figure of 8 where you've worked in and around those chains. Sew your end in through the middle like that. And then pop that into place here. So just underneath, above your band and underneath the gemmed band. To avoid having to tie in too many ends, what I'll often do is use the ends on one piece, if I am in the same colour, to put a few more stitches into another as well. So do you see how on the top there, I've not quite tacked that turquoise out of sight. I've used my yellow on that figure of 8. So with the figure of 8 in position, the last piece to add is the cobra. So this is believed to have, this is actually broken off as we see the artifact today, but it's believed to have been a cobra. So that's why you've got that little top and you've got that cobra shaped neck. That's going to sit here on the hat to represent the cobra. So just sew the end that's next to the head effectively in. Bring that yarn down the centre. So you've got your 2 ends at the bottom. Like that. And then you have got right side and wrong side. So get your right sides facing because that means it'll curve over like that. And then sew that piece onto the top of the figure of 8 like that. Now it is very layered and there is a lot of sewing up. There's no two ways about that when you're putting this Nefertiti hat together. But then it is one of the most elaborate pieces of jewellery or headwear that I've certainly ever made and indeed in history. So it's going to take a little bit of patience to put the pieces together, but it is worth it. So just take your time. Don't rush this bit when you're putting the pieces together. You've done all the hard work with all that bead work on the collars and the bangles and on doing that double crochet as you do the tunic in the fine. So just take a little bit of time to put a few extra stitches in to make that a very neat job when you finish. So with my ends all sewn in, let's just take one last 360 view at her so you've got a proper view. So you're making this collar as a separate piece, and I haven't secured that down. All I do is make sure that my colour change is at the back when I position it on my doll. You've got your 2 bands, you've got your shoes, that lovely edging to that fine tunic, and then let's take one last look right the way around this headpiece. So what we did is we crocheted the yellow piece onto the blue piece, going through the top of that band on that section and then the bottom on the other section, so that was a nice neat finish. Then we tacked on the central piece like that at the top and bottom so that we could thread the central piece right the way through and cross them over at the back like that. So you've got a cross sitting behind that headpiece. Then the little figure of 8 goes underneath the bejeweled band in the gap that you left behind, and your bejeweled band should sit halfway up that central piece like that. So sew your figure of 8 on and then sew your cobra onto the top. And that is Queen Nefertiti in all of her glory complete.